Welcome back to the Fourth Man Podcast. You are here with Shug,
And Michael,
and we are back, baby.
back at it.
You know, starting to get more comfortable in
TFM family.
TFM, man, the
TFM.
Fourth Man. Man, it's cool just to see just life happen, you know?
Yeah. God's
Like-
already working in this that we already didn't really expect
Yeah.
for him to be working so
Like-
quick.
I was expecting 2 people to watch it, me and you.
Yeah.
You know, and more people were watching, which is cool.
Yeah.
But today, we're going to be talking about spiritual highs and spiritual lows because it's an important conversation to have. Because I feel like you get recognition, or people see you more or see you as better if you're on fire for the Lord. You know, but then a lot of times what happens is you kind of fall off, or you come down off of the high, and then people are like, man, what happened? You got to get back up there. And I think we need more of a spiritual consistency, more so than a spiritual high and spiritual low.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So spiritual highs, you see that a lot during camp season for youth. We're 2 big youth guys, we serve in our youth ministry. Really, we fell in love with camp from a young age.
Yeah.
I got saved at a camp. That's where my journey started in high school. And you grew up doing camps.
I was about to say, yeah, that's been a part of my life since literally like the 4th grade, like always going to like help up there with my parents and my family, and they were always involved in it, and I was always a part of it. And yeah, always been a part of camp, always loved serving. It's probably some of my favorite serving to do. But yeah, talking about staying consistent spiritually, it is hard to come off that that I guess you could say spiritual high, because you're on fire. Especially, it's a very emotional time too. So not to get caught up in both spiritually and emotionally, because emotions come and go, and you will typically slack off after a camp. Or I've also seen is I've been more so. I see the devil trying to attack me more after a camp and after a season of encouragement and a season of growth that I've had, and so much wisdom and knowledge from these teachers and leaders that have been teaching us all week.
Yeah, and spiritual highs, man, it's a good thing. It's a very encouraging thing to see students come back on fire for the Lord. Get your church pumped up, it get your youth leaders pumped up, it get your congregation pumped up, because it's cool to see people, not care what other people think and just want to serve the Lord, speak about the Lord. And man, a lot of times you get snapped back into a reality and you get knocked down when, quote, real life happens, when you get back into, quote unquote, a real life. But I know for me, early on, spiritual highs and spiritual lows were a big part of my walk. Like I found contentment in the serving process. Like what's the word I'm looking for? I found my identity in the serve. Like I was at our old church pretty much 7 days a week. And that's what I was known for. That's what I wanted to be known for. And I based my spirituality on how much I was at the church. But in reality was, man, that has nothing. I mean, it has stuff to do with, your spiritual healthiness of serving, like we talked about last week. But if you find your identity in serving, you're missing the point of being a Christian. Yeah. When we become a Christian, serving is a byproduct. Serving is a fruit of God's grace and God's love for us. And when we're in a spiritual high, man, we love just to serve. But it's very easy to get knocked down.
Yeah.
Like I was thinking about this the other day, and the closer you are to God, the more sin hurts. The more you feel separated from God when you sin. And a lot of times that'll knock you down.
It does.
It'll knock you down. It'll discourage you. But on the flip side is, man, when the little sins hurt so much, you're getting so close to God. Because it's like just a minute thing hurts you. It's like, man, that's where I want to be, where the little things hurt. A lot of times when we're on a spiritual high, we can see that. We can see the little things are hurting, like we want to make the changes, and we want to be sanctified by God, and we want to just be the best Christians we can be. And that's a cool place to be.
So the minute sins and stuff, I think, grows you closer in consistency, because it also, I feel like the closer you are, and just that little bitty sin, it hurts. It hurts more to do, and it hurts more to God. It feels like to you, if that makes sense. That kind of didn't make sense. Yeah. Anyways, and then I think when I think of a spiritual high, I think this is my kind of experience on it. It was go to camp. That would be like the most time that I spent in my Bible all year, like the most time I was praising, the most time I was listening to Christian music, like everything. That was really my basis for the whole year was camp. And I think that's why I liked it so much, is because that I knew that's what it was coming, and it was going to be a good week, and I really was going to feel God move. But then after, it would just go right back to the same thing. Like the next week I would be in my word, whatever, 3-4 days, and then slowly the next week, maybe a day or two, then next week nothing, and then back to the same old sins, back to the same old ways, even being a Christian and being saved. So I think that was my view on spiritual high. But those minute sins, when they hurt the most, I think that's the most time where the most consistent you are.
Yeah, and you said something in that sentence. You expected God to do something in camp, and I think that's a lot of big problems Christians face with a spiritual inconsistency is when you go to a conference, when you go to camp, you expect God to do something. You expect God to move in your life. But when we're alone, are you expecting God to move when you're alone?
Yeah.
Are you expecting God to show up in his word to, sanctify you, to mold you in your private study? A lot of times, no. Yeah. Like we come to church and, we expect the pastor to bring a good word. We expect the worship leader to sound good. We expect somebody to come say hey to us. But when we flip it around, are we expecting God to do something, and are we expecting us to do something?
Yeah, I think that brings a good point, because up until, the last 2 years or so, I never saw God move in my personal study because I never was intentional with it, or I was never, it never really meant anything, and I never really expected anything, like you were saying. And now that I have seen that, it's a total different mindset. And I think that's one way that I have stayed consistent is just because it's such a you're feeling God every day compared to
you're
just
expecting
1 week.
God to move every day in your life instead of once a week or once a summer.
Exactly, yeah. And I think that's what keeps me going. I'm like, that's the fire. I need that now because I know what he's going to bring me, and I know he's going to have something laid out in his word for me that day.
Yeah. It's okay to expect God to do something because he wants us to be open enough to see him move. Like we're free will human beings. We make choices in our lives that we have freedom to do. So we can either choose to, be open to a move of God or to be closed to a move of God. We can be open to expecting God to move, or we can close him off and put him in a box. But it's all up to us on how much we want God to move.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we put God in a tiny box, then we're limiting a limitless God in our life.
Yeah, that's so true that you say that, because we do that, and we were talking about modern day Christianity in America a few minutes ago, and that's what we kind of talked about is we really put God in a box, and when you step outside of that, it really, when you allow Him to be like you're fully relying on Him, it opens that box. Like you can't put Him in a box because you are totally reliant on Him.
Yeah. And when we, especially in modern America, we like to put limits on things, but we can't put a limit on God.
Mm-hmm.
He's the creator of the universe. He created gravity. That still blows my mind. Like, why we need gravity, and things like that. And like, man, if we will get out of the way and just let God do His thing,
Mm-hmm.
we will stop messing up God's plan.
Yeah.
Like we give the devil so much credit
Way too much.
over our own stupid stuff. There's things I do. The devil's after me.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no, like this is all because of me. Like I wasn't obedient to God, or I wasn't living in the will of God, or I was doing something despite God said not to. Like this is just a consequence of my own action.
Mm-hmm.
And there's consequences or or rewards for our actions. So, and I think that's where we can get into spiritual lows is, man, we just get knocked down and life hits us. And then we start thinking, well, where's God? God's not in this season. God doesn't love me, or God left me, or this and that. And it's like, no, the spiritual low is because I'm not being consistent.
Or not being obedient.
Yes.
That is like a thing that's been on my radar recently. We were talking about this earlier. There was a song that I was listening to, and it was talking about, like, I'd rather be in the jungle and in the will of God, or I'd rather not be, like, in the jungle. Or I'd rather be in the jungle doing the will of God than anywhere else, basically. Just because that if you mess up His plan and you're not obedient, which you're not going to mess up His plan. That's not bad.
God's plan is always
it's going to be fulfilled. But you want to be close to God, be obedient, because when you're not, you are far, far from Him.
I mean, you can look at Jonah.
Mm-hmm.
His will was to go preach to the Ninevites. He was like, nope. So he went and tried to hide on a boat, and then the waves and the seas were crazy. He got thrown off. Ate by a big fish. That got a stank in a big fish.
That's rough.
That's
rough, bro.
But it reminds you of, man, it'll be easier if you just do God's will.
Mm-hmm. So much easier.
So much easier.
Not like, I can't express that enough.
I mean, you can look at what was it when Moses was leading the God's people to the promised land. I read somewhere where it was like 13 miles was from where they started to the promised land. Mm-hmm. And they were wandering in the forest for like 40 years because they weren't relying on God, And it's like, man, if we would just rely on the Creator, if we would just rely on the guy who says, hey, I have a plan for you, and this is, I will show you the steps when you get to it. If we would just rely and be faithful to that, dude, it'd be crazy to see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, it really is. Like when you feel like it's never going to work out, that's when He always steps in and says, yep, we're going to do this. This is going to be the plan. This is happening now. You're like, what the heck just happened?
And what I found in my personal walk, and what I can see through other people's walk also, is when we're in a spiritual low, we are usually always thinking, why is God punishing me? That's my first thought.
Okay.
Is it's not me. It can't be me.
Can't be me.
Can't be, you know? It's like, but why is God punishing me? Okay, number one, he's probably not. It's probably my own stupid self got me into this. Number two, he could be punishing me. But it's like, why would I get mad at God for punishing me? But yet we see the value when our parents punish us.
I was just gonna say that we have to like.
You know what I mean? It's like, okay, we expect our parents to punish us. When we do something wrong at work, our boss can fire us. But when the Father says, hey, I have greater plans for you, so you might have to go through this season to get you better, but you're going to do better in the long run. We get mad at that, and we start cussing out God or saying he's not a holy, good, or just God. But yet we're being hypocrites about it because we're okay when it comes to our biological parents or our boss or things like that.
Yeah. That's what, like, when I think spiritual low is kind of like lukewarm. That's what I think, and that's what I experience normally, or what I have experienced in the past is like just being lukewarm, being at church on Sunday, being on Wednesday, or being there on Sundays and Wednesdays and whenever the doors are open. But if I'm not in my word and if I'm not really doing God's will for my life, then nothing's gonna move. I'm just gonna stay in that lukewarm season of life. And that was me as a Christian for a long, long time, was that lukewarm season, being there, saying hey to everybody at church, and then going on my way.
And just doing whatever.
And doing whatever I wanted to.
You know, and there's a greater call on our lives than just to show up on Sundays and sit in a pew or a chair. You know, our calling is to, number one, do the will of the Lord. You know, do his will. And we're also to serve people. You know, to serve God by serving people. I find that quote, you know, it can hit you in the heart real quick, because it's like, yeah, I love God. If I love God, am I loving his people? Am I loving the people that he died for? You know, am I serving the people? And it's like, no. You know, but it's kind of eye-opening. And I think a big thing for Christians is to not get so much wrapped up into spiritual highs and spiritual lows, but being spiritually consistent. It's saying, okay, I feel good today, and I'm reading my Bible, and I'm doing what the Lord says. Tomorrow, I feel like crap, but guess what? I'm still going to read my Bible. I'm still going to seek his truths. I'm going to do his will. The next day, I'm feeling okay. Guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to read his word. I'm going to read his truths. I'm going to do his will. And that's how we are spiritually consistent, and we grow that way. Because it doesn't matter if you're on the mountaintops or if you're on the valleys. If you are consistently seeking out God's will and his truths and his promises, man, that is how we grow as people. And that's how our testimonies are strong also. It's like, hey, I went through the wilderness, but God was with me. God carried me halfway through the wilderness, you know. But it also can translate into, hey, I see you struggling in this area of your life. I also struggled in that area. And it can either be I wasn't faithful and this is what happened, or I was faithful and I saw God's promises and God's fruitfulness and God's love and God's justness just to be there with me, just to be present with me in that area. And that's what helped me through it. You know, so it strengthens our communication between our brothers and sisters in Christ and lost people when we can just be consistent and faithful in God.
Yeah, when you leave your feelings out of it, which a lot of what our society, especially our generation and our society today, like we base a lot of things on our feelings, and if we leave our feelings out of it, even though we may not want to read our Bible or want to get in the Word, that is when I usually get most blessed. Like when you're really in the Word, and really when you don't want to be, when you're in the Word and you don't want to be.
Yeah.
When I see a lot of growth.
Like when you try to build a business, you know, we can put this in that aspect. You can't build a good business by working on it one day a week. Yep. You can't build a clientele by just posting once. You can't build the necessary elements of a business, whether that's financial, whether that's structure, whether that's clients. You can't do it just one day a week.
Mm-hmm.
You can't grow your faith just one day a week. You have to do it 7 days a week. It's work, you know, like the gates are wide for the people who don't want to do this work.
Yeah.
But the road is narrow that leads straight to Christ, that leads to heaven. But it's work.
Mm-hmm. It ain't easy.
It's not a get out of hell free card. That's not what Christianity is. Christianity, I saw this video by Vadi Bakum today, and it was kind of a reaction of somebody. He said, it was old Joel Osteen's video is what it was. And he said,
listen to bro.
Joel Osteen said he would like to give you an opportunity to make Christ Lord. And Vadi responds, if you make Christ Lord, then you are Lord telling your Lord to be Lord. And it's like, it doesn't work like that.
No.
Jesus is Lord already.
Yeah.
Are you going to accept that? Because when we accept that he is Lord and we do that work, it is so fulfilling because we are actually doing what our purpose is. We are living up to the plans that he has set for us.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the ultimate goal, is that Christians live up and do what the Lord has planned for us to do. Because if I do what I want to do, I'm going to mess it up.
Yeah.
10 times out of 10, you know.
You're relying on yourself to try and get something done that you need help on.
Yeah, like it ain't going to work.
Yeah.
It ain't going to work. But when we can focus on God and be consistent, like building a business, if you are consistent, if you are consistently looking for clients, if you are consistently pursuing clients, if you are consistently looking how to be better financially or a better leader or, you know, learn more about the area you're in, you're going to succeed. Same way in Christianity, same way in your walk, is if you want to learn more about the Lord, if you want to seek his truth, seek his promises, seek the plan he has for you, seek counseling with one another, seek community with one another, and you will be successful in this walk.
Yeah.
You know, and that is how we maintain spiritual health. You know, a big thing now, you see a lot of people deconstructing from Christianity. And it's like, okay, the church hurts you. And, you know,
yeah,
like people going to hurt people.
People are going to fail you.
Yes. If you rely on me, you're going to fail just like I'm going to fail.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but when we put our trust in the Lord and we just focus on the Lord and focus on his truth and his promises, man, we start seeing things that only the Lord can do. You know, like if I'm trying to, and this is a big thing too, and then I think we'll wrap up because we're close to time. But if we try to get our doctrine and our theology from somebody instead of from the Word, you're already failing. Yeah. You're already failing in your walk. You're already failing in church life. You're already failing in life in general. We have the Bible in our native language to where we don't have to rely on somebody else to feed me God's truth. I can search for it myself. Yeah. And that is where spiritual health starts, is when you realize, hey, I can do this. Yeah. You know, I don't have to rely on Michael.
And realizing, hey, I gotta go search because it's not gonna be gifted to me. It's not gonna be served on a silver platter. You gotta go get it.
Yeah, it's just truth.
It's there. You gotta go get it.
Just gotta get it, man. It's work. But it's work worth working for. If that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
I was like, wait.
Yeah, I don't know where I was going with that. It sounded better in my head. But
a lot of things I say on here sound better in my head.
I think I'm a theologian in my head, but once I get out, it sounds like beep, boop, boop, bop, beep, boop. You know, I can't even form a sentence.
Real robot for real. But,
yeah, just spiritual health is important. in general, whether it's a high, whether it's a low.
Got to realize what situation you're in too.
Yes.
If you're in that consistency, if you're in that low, if you're in that high, turn
Just
to God.
be consistent. Consistently search for the Lord.
Yeah.
Consistently love his people. Consistently do his will.
Rather be in the will of God than anywhere else.
That's it.
Talked about that today.
Just be in the will. Be present in his
Yeah.
glory, in his presence.
Yeah.
But I think that'll do it.
Yep.
I think that does it for the Fourth Man podcast.
TFM family.
TFM fam, man. That's good. But we will be back Monday. Yeah.
Yeah, Monday.
You got a message for the people real quick?
I appreciate all you guys watching and liking our stuff, subscribing to our stuff. And it's cool to see God work already so early in this.
Yeah.
Even though it's a little right now and we didn't expect anything big anyways. So appreciate all you guys. That's really the main thing.
Yeah. So like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. That sounds way
It sounds
worse.
weird, man. It sounds like
corny.
we're YouTubers now, but
sounds corny, but
it helps people find this content.
It does.
And if you like this content, if you think it helps, share it.
Comment.
Yeah.
What you like, what you hated.
Yeah.
If you hate it altogether.
If you hate it, let us know. If you hate God, we'll pray for you.
Lord still loves you if you hate this. So
yeah.
it's all good.
Yeah. But we'll catch you back Monday. Deuces.
See ya.